That's it. First hole drilled. We're committed now. Let's get started. Yep, it's that time again. Tool time. Today we're going to be installing the new GX color controller, part of the new Victron system, and this is going to be like our central hub of communications that reports the status of everything in the system. So that's going to be very cool. You can see over here I've already installed my BMV712, the battery monitor. This is the BMV712 battery monitor right here. It tells us all the information directly related to the batteries as far as current coming in and out, how much time remaining, amperage being drawn. You can see we've got 29 amps going in right now, and that's coming from the solar panels. So you can see this is one of our main storage cabinets on the boat, and I've already got the lines drawn out here where we're going to make our cuts. And if we look in behind the back of the panel, you can see I've already got a lot of the wiring already roughed in, not tied up or anything, but just roughed in. So we've got all of our cabling coming across here that's going to be for the main battery electronics here. And I got another set of wires going up here that's going to be over here, and that's where we're going to have our router control. I'm going to move that away from my desk because it used to be right over there. And that's why I have such an electric personality, because it makes my head glow sitting beside it for so many years. So, time to move the router. So as part of my 3-month review on the Battleborn battery installation, the lithium phosphate batteries, I've done a deep discharge test on them because, as you can see, it's raining. We've had cloudy, overcast weather, like deep overcast, for several days now, and we've pretty much exhausted our capacity. So right now we are sitting at 11%. 11%. We have actually drawn down 89% of the usable capacity of the batteries. So from 800 amp hours, we have drawn 741 amp hours. You can see right there at the top, our deepest discharge is our last discharge. That's pretty amazing. I mean, to bring these things down to 11% and still be operating, look at the voltage up at the top here. It's still at 12.5 volts. And we've got, if we go downstairs, I mean, you can see it's raining, it's overcast. We're not getting any power from solar today. And yet here we are, we've got all our lights running, we got our fans running, and we're doing laundry. The laundry machine is still running. And right now it's drawing 24 amps. So 24 amps you can see right there by my thumb, and we are still over 12.44 volts. That's amazing. I mean, that's amazing. We are at almost 90% discharge now and still operating fully as if nothing changed. So obviously I can't continue to do that forever. I'm not going to draw them down past 10% because there's really no reason to do that. But today I am going to have to run the engine. So that's what we're going to do here shortly. I'm going to get the engine running, and even with dual high output alternators, I mean, the most that I get on average is about 140 amps continuous output. So it will take some time to replace that power. I don't know if we're going to get any sun in the next couple of days, so I'm not going to try and replace all the power at once, but probably I'll end up running the batteries for, or running the engine for about 3 hours today. And 3 hours should put in almost 50%, like get us back up to about 50%. So maybe a bit over 50%. So that's what I'm gonna have to do today, and then I'll have to run it again tomorrow maybe if we don't get any more sun again, but we'll play that by ear and see how it goes. But for now, there we are, man. 11% and still operating, and over 12.4 volts. If we tried that with lead acid, they'd have been dead at 50%. You put a 27 amp load on my old bank of lead acid system, and that was a 660 amp capacity system. You draw that down by 50% and put a 20 amp load on it, and it would drop to 11.5 volts. That's not usable. I would have electronics shutting off all over the place, so they just automatically shut off as soon as the batteries get that far below 12 volts. But here with lithium phosphate, we're operating as normal, and we've been doing so for 3 days with no sun, so it's an amazing difference. Wow. 10%. We're down 90% of our capacity now and still running. 12.38 volts, drawing 22 amps with the laundry machine still running. But yeah, it's time to hit the engine now, so I don't want to run them down any more than that. So we'll get the engine going and bring up the RPMs. Let's see. Yeah, at idle you can see now I'm charging just over 30 amps. So just around 25 to 30 amps right now. That's at idle. So I'm just letting a little oil get up into the cylinders, and we bring it up slowly to charging RPM. So I got dual Balmer high output alternators. They're both rated at 110 or 120 watts maximum, but realistically once it's heated up they put out about 70 each maximum, so I can charge at about 140 amps. Again, depending on the RPM I run them at. Okay, so right now, yeah, you can see there it's fluctuating just around 140, 145 amps. So we're getting good amperage off the alternators right now. Considering, remember, we're still drawing 20 something amps out while we're doing laundry and running lights and everything. So we're getting 144 amps, and that'll drop a little bit as the batteries, as the alternators warm up. Because at their hot operating temperature, they'll drop by about 15%, something around there. So we are getting 1900 watts into the batteries. That brings us up to 12.86 volts because it's charging now. So we're in good shape. We just got to let the engine run for at least 2, maybe 3 hours, and that should get us back up to about 50%, and then we'll play it by ear tomorrow once we see what the weather's going to be like. So far so good on our deep discharge test.
I don't care, it's a double dare. I ain't scared, you best beware, you best beware. It's alright, she's in my side. I got all night, so just sit tight, so just sit tight.
Charging at 140 amps. You can look at our summary on the GX controller. See, we're only getting 100 watts from the solar panel, so we're not getting a lot, but we're drawing 260 watts on the AC, which is mostly the laundry machine. That's coming through the inverter. So here's the DC power, which is at minus 2000 watts. Let's see, so over here we're up to 11% now, 1900, 1800, 1700. That's the remaining power after the load, how much is going back into the battery. So 1800 watts or about 130 amps, which you can confirm right there. So just a quick update, we are at 20% and we've been running the engine for 1/2 hour. I started it at 1:30 p.m. It is now, as you can see up in the top corner, it's 2 o'clock. So 30 minutes we managed to put in 10%, and we're still getting 136 amps or about 1800 watts into the batteries. So we're getting there. So yeah, it's at 668 amp hours, so we put almost 100 amp hours into it in half an hour, so we'll see what it's like in another hour. But yeah, we're going to be running the engine for at least 2 hours today, and then we'll have to wait and see what the weather's like tomorrow to decide if we need to run it some more. Now, an interesting side note as I'm looking at it is you can see we're at 22%. I'm charging. We're still getting 138 amps. Some of that is actually coming from the solar panels. If I switch over to the solar panel display, we'll just bring this up here. And you can see I'm getting 300 watts from solar power, which down here translates to 23 amps. So even in full cloud cover, as you see, we're not getting any direct sun here anywhere, and my maximum solar capacity output is 100 amps. So even in full cloud cover, I'm getting 25% output during the day. That's pretty amazing too. That's one of the reasons that I have an oversized bank. Everybody says, why do you need that much power? Well, it's not because we need it on sunny days. It's just that it helps us replenish power on cloudy days. So we can actually still keep up with our loads for the most part, unless it's like full cloud cover, which of course that's what it is. But now it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The sun is pretty high overhead, and we're still getting over 20 amps from the solar panels. So cool. 4 o'clock, we're at 52%. So took a little bit longer than I thought. But that's also because we've been doing some cooking down there with the electric stovetop, making lunch and some preparation for dinner, and also did 2 loads of laundry. So that factored in. That's not too bad. So basically 2.5 hours to put in 52, well, it's 53% now. So we put in 43% of overall capacity. So not too bad. But now we're going to shut down. But that is one thing I do want to improve on next. So one of the next upgrades you're going to hear me talking about as I look further into it is going to be upgrading the alternators, because the 2 alternators I got right now are made by Balmer and they've done a good job. But when we get into this kind of capacity and you want to charge fast to decrease engine time, we need something a little more powerful. Like right now my alternators are 12 volt, 120 amp rated maximum, but they only put out, 70, 75 really in a real world at operating temperature. Now they put out about 1 kilowatt each. So now it's possible, and I've been looking at the option of possibly upgrading my base system from 12 volt to 24 volt so that I can put higher output alternators on the engine. Because I could put one 5 kilowatt alternator on the engine that would recharge at 24 volts 200 amps. So if I converted my base system with the Battleborn lithium batteries to 24 volts by putting some of them in series and then in parallel with the rest, I would basically go from a 12 volt bank that has 800 amp hours of capacity to a 24 volt bank that has 400 amp hours of capacity. Now I can charge them at 24 volts with a 200 amp alternator, and that would replace the entire bank flat out, even if they were from flat dead to fully charged in 2 hours. So that's worth looking at. Of course, it takes more power from the engine, so you don't want to use it if you're in an emergency situation or trying to pile into big waves or something. You need your engine power, so you've got to have an adjustable regulator in there that you can dial down the field control on it, because power is power. It's going to take so many horsepower out of the engine to actually spin that alternator. But that's my next things that I'll be looking into for next upgrades into the power system. That's the base charging. I don't really count on it right now because when we have sunny days, I got all the power I need. But now I have to start thinking about it because it's almost the end of rainy season, so I'm happy about that. We're getting back into sunny season. But for now, it's meant that I've had to run the engine a lot more frequently than necessary, just because we haven't had the amount of sunshine that the solar panels can actually keep up with our consumption. So, next on the list, that's where we go.
Woohoo! See it? On my finger. Yeah. Grumpy. Woohoo!
Oops. Playing racquetball.
Yoo-hoo! Oh, good Dicky! Much power.
She's better at this than you.
Yeah. Okay.
Have fun, Tiki, huh? Have fun.
Yoo-hoo!
Oops.